What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we got another batch of new starter deck cards to be having a little bit of a look at, and I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that these are pretty cool, and I am pretty excited. And I want to start off with my boy Smoker. I like Smoker. And I don't think I've really made any secret of the fact that I am very much hoping that the new Smoker starter deck makes Smoker good. Of course, remember the deal with these, what they're doing is they're reprinting old leaders with new art. And there are some reprints, I've already seen one reprinted card at least confirmed for these starter decks. But it turns out, actually there's a bunch more, that's a lie, but a bunch have been confirmed as being reprinted. But there are also a bunch of new cards as well. And they're aiming to make these old leaders good again. Or, I suppose for some of them, maybe good for the first time. I like Smoker. I want the Smoker leader from OPO2 to be good. Up until now, it has never been good. Maybe Starter Deck 19 is the answer. I am very much holding out hope. So we have a new Smoker coming in here in terms of a Smoker leader. Are we excited? Is this any good? The answer is, yeah, it's a pretty cool card, honestly. 6 cost, 8,000 power, no counter. It's not great. Vanilla card would have a counter. But what we've got here is on play, you may trash a black navy card from your hand. And just to confirm, it is a card, not a character. So events, etc. will be fine. And then you choose up to 2 of your opponent's cost 4 or lower characters. They cannot attack until the end of your opponent's next turn. Yeah, that's pretty good. I.e., for your opponent's next turn. So the exact wording is, until the end of your opponent's next turn, they can't attack. Just means they can't attack during your opponent's next turn. It is good, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely good. I like it. Now, admittedly, it's 4 cost or lower characters, so it's not all of them. But you're basically turning off 2 characters from being able to attack during your opponent's next turn or until the end of their next turn. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that that's pretty gosh darn good. Ideally here, you've got decent attacking 4-cost characters, and then I play Smoker, and all of a sudden, they can't be used. That sounds like fun. It is quite expensive as a 6-cost, but the idea of picking the perfect time to turn off one of your opponent's characters, I'm just saying, or 2 of their characters I should say, that sounds pretty gosh darn good to me. This is one that I've got my eye on. I think this one could be kind of fun. Want some other cards? How about, from the same starter deck, we have a look at Monkey the Garp. Because, you know, there's a Garp in this starter deck as well. And again, anything that can make Smoker good is fine by me. 3 cost, 4,000 power, counter plus 1,000, and you've got blocker. It's fine. It's not amazing. It's alright. But then you've got activate main once per turn. You have to put a card from your trash to the bottom of your deck. And remember, when the wording is in bold with a colon at the start, you have to do that. And then once you've done that, that essentially activates the rest of the skill, so to speak. And then you get to reduce one of your opponent's characters by 1 cost during this turn. It's alright. Honestly, I mean, being able to put a card back at the bottom of your deck is nice, although realistically, One Piece doesn't have a huge amount of deck shuffling, searching, etc. So a lot of the cards that go back to the bottom of your deck are going to stay there. You're not really, I mean, I'm sure there's some weird ways you can, but generally speaking, it's not like Pokemon where you can put a card back in your deck, half the cards you play will shuffle your deck, and then you're just back and you can find it again. That's not really the way One Piece tends to work. However, it's only 1 card to the bottom of your deck. Find 1, put it back, job's a good 'un, and then you get to lower one of your opponent's characters by 1 cost for the turn. And the fact is, this is black, and this is what black tend to do. Remember, the Smoker leader says if there's a character of a cost of 0, you gain 1,000 power after giving one of your opponent's characters -1 cost. So take a 2 cost, put it down to 1 with Smoker, the leader, then put it down to 0 with Garp, and then boom, you get the extra 1,000 power. Black like lowering power, and you stick 1 Don on here, you're a decent attacker. But then also, by the same token, you're also a blocker. And I think that's what's unique about Garp. Because we've got a million cards that we play to lower cost. Like we see TCG seeing a bunch of play, rest this character, give one of your opponent's characters -2 cost. But then it's also got counter plus 2k, which is obviously a very good thing. One very common one we see is Suru from Paramount War. Sees a huge amount of play in these black decks for lowering cost. It's kind of a tradition at this point. And that also has counter plus 2k, and it gives a -2 cost on play. But this is every turn. You don't have to rest this character, and you're a blocker, and that's essentially the hook here. It's a kind of skill lowering costs that we've seen on a million other cards, but the hook here is you're doing that while also having a decent blocker on the board, so you don't have to choose between playing a character that lowers cost and playing a character with blocker. You play a character that does both, and then you decide turn by turn what's more important. So that's what we've got from the new Smoker deck, but we also have a new couple of cards from the Charlotte Katakuri deck, starter deck 20, that we should have a little bit of a look at as well. Starting off with a new Charlotte Brulee. I'm lying to you, there's only one from starter deck 20, and then there's one from another starter deck. We'll get there in a minute. So what we got from Charlotte Brulee is 3 cost, 3,000 power, counter plus 2k, and just before we say anything else, counter plus 2k is good. When you play these 2k counters, there will be a whole bunch of games where essentially you just use it for the counter. Really is as simple as that. But let's say you don't want to use it for a counter. What else does it do? Well, you look at the top card of yours or your opponent's life, put it on the top or bottom of life, and then add it to your hand. I adore this trigger skill. Because here's the thing, right? First of all, you get to rearrange life. Could be yours, could be your opponent's. And remember, there's two things that life does. Firstly, life goes to your hand when it's taken. And secondly, you've got triggers that may activate. So what you're trying to do here is trying to make sure that either you do have the right card on top to either draw or use the trigger, or your opponent doesn't have the right card on top to either draw or use as a trigger. Either way, that's pretty good. And again, it's going to depend on the game state here. If I'm rushing ahead and I'm in a great position, then I can just use this to fortify me. Or if I'm playing against a yellow deck, I can try and take away their triggers. But I am a yellow deck, so I might be trying to fix my own triggers. There's a million different ways you can go with this, and they're all good. But then you add the card to your hand. And remember what I was saying a minute ago about the fact that a lot of the time with these kind of cards, by which I mean the ones that have counter plus 2,000, you want them in hand just to use as a counter, and that's going to be enough. Yeah. Well, you see here, you get it to hand, and then you've got the 2k counter. And honestly, as a trigger, this is nuts. Now, if you're playing this card to the field, it's kind of terrible. 3 cost, 3,000 power, nah mate, I'm cool. But if you draw it, you can use it as counter plus 2k. Brilliant. If it comes out as a trigger, you can use it to stack life and then use it as counter plus 2k, and that is good. In this regard, though I know it's a different kind of card, it reminds me quite a lot of that Captain Capone Beige, the yellow card that is basically a staple in like every yellow deck. Because Capone Beige, no one's playing that on the field. And I know some people will sometimes play it on the field because they have to, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, fine. My point is, nobody wants to play that card. It's got a really good trigger that stops someone attacking. And it's got counter plus 2k. So you play that either for the 2k counter or you play it for the trigger. You're never actually playing that card to play it down and attack with it. That's how I feel about this Charlotte Brulee. That's kind of the point. So let's finish off then having a look at an old favourite, Onami. Yeah, there's another Onami card, and remember, we've just, well, not quite actually, we are just coming up to the release of OP07 is probably a better way to phrase it, and in OP07 we do of course have the special rare Onami. I rather suspect that's going to be quite popular. And now we've got a new Onami card in here as well. It's Nami, but when she's in Wano, the Straw Hat take on different names in Wano. I'm sure there's a very good reason for it. What this card does, 4 cost, 2,000 power, counter plus 1,000. So the power here is terrible. But you got blocker, and we talked about blocker a little bit a minute ago with Garp. That's good. And on play, if you have 8 or more Don on your field, trash 1 card from your hand, and then draw 2 cards. deal, frankly. Deal. It's a decent draw card. It's giving you a little bit of extra draw. It's giving you that extra boost you need. Trash 1, draw 2. Now, very, 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 very important. You trash a card from your hand and then draw 2. That is the order in which it goes. It's the bad order, because obviously what you would much rather do is draw 2 and then have the greatest number of cards from which to choose when looking to discard. That is generally the way you want to play it. Having to discard before you draw means that you may well discard a card that you want more than the cards you've drawn, and that's a little bit sad, but boo-hoo, never mind. But here you got a weak blocker, you got 2,000 power. The reality is you're going to block and get KO. Like, you're not going to survive a block most of the time here. That's fine. You've got a block to ward off an attack, and when you play this, you end up with a +1 card, but you see 2 more cards, and that sounds good. We saw a bunch of other Straw Hats that do this in this purple deck as well, and remember what I told you when I told you about them. You need 8 Dawn cards on the field, so Black Maria will work here. Remember, Black Maria puts out 5 extra Dawn, but then you have to return them at the end of your turn until you've got the same number as your opponent, same number of Dawn, or less. Well, what you can do here is essentially use Black Maria, put out the Dawn, you then do have 8 or more Dawn in play, so your skill will activate, and even if you have to put them back at the end of your turn, by that point the skill has already activated. So yay! And there we go. Those are the new cards, that's what you need to know, and now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about these new cards. Tell me which of them are tickling your fancy. Tell me if you think I'm going to get lucky and Smoker is going to become awesome again. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about One Piece and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.